famous quote. Where's my sweet spot? There it is. Paraphrasing it here. One cannot be exposed to suffering and expect it not to affect you. That's as stupid as being able to walk through the ocean and not get wet. That quote comes from pretty much the beginning of when I started my journey. Let me start with where I start, what I teach my learners, what I facilitate. So the first question I've got is, drugs. Who here takes drugs? Show of hands. I don't think everyone in this room is being honest with me. Who here observes people go to their drug dealer every day? Once again, I think you're not being honest with me. I didn't say illegal drugs. There we go, there's the hands. I love my local drug dealer. Ting. My service is great. If I don't like that drug dealer or they're not open, I can go to another one called Timmy's. I can go to Blends. I can go back to Starbucks. I can walk up to that barista and say, just screw me up. Yeah, give it to me. I want a long quad 8-shot Americano. Right now. Give it to me. And then the next person in line says it. And the next person. And the next person. So why do we do drugs? Would it be fair to say that they work? Caffeine does not perk you up. It's an adenosine blocker. Your body is screaming at you that you're tired. And it blocks the receptors for the adenosine in your brain, and you're awake. You're flying. Woo. It's a vasodilator, flushes you with oxygen. Yeah, it's good stuff. So who here likes caffeine? Oh, you bunch of addicts. It's nice to meet you all. Welcome to my meeting. All right, so my point is taken. Not all drugs are bad, but they are effective. They work. You want a painkiller? Take opium. You want a really good painkiller? Take opium, put it in a metal pan, wooden spoon, and cook it. You get heroin. Now you're all chemists. How do you feel? That's my enemy right there. I have not seen low-sodium, organic, gluten-free heroin on the streets in about 15 years. Dead serious. It's all analogs now. It's plastic. Just like I don't have a paper cup, I have a plastic cup. I have the synthetic version. It doesn't soak. It doesn't break. But it does everything I ask it to do. Thankfully, I don't have drugs in it right now. And fentanyl. Oh, it works. You want to feel good? You take it, and you feel amazing. I'll tell you the story of a young woman that I had in custody once. I'm not going to go into any of the framing. I just want you to have her story. I was asking her. This is full addiction. She was in my charge, and I was about to turn her over to the police. Oh, I'm physically shaking thinking of this. I remember the joy on her face. She was relaying to me what it was like to take heroin. This is as she was going into DTs, as she was beginning to go pale, the sweating was beginning. She was going to vomit in about 35 minutes. You can stop watch that stuff. Once you know what you're looking at, you can accurately tell what's about to happen, physically at least. And she was telling me about getting out of this tent. She was unhoused and taking that substance, and the joy, just nothing mattered. The dew on the greenery around her. Everything was beautiful. She felt free. Perfect. And I could see in her mind, in the mind's eye that she was showing me as she was relating this to me, that she wanted to be there and nowhere else. Here's the cold truth. Just like with caffeine or any other drug, here's how you make an addict. Time. That heroin wears off in, depending on the dose, 4 to 6 hours. And if you have 20 years of suffering, well, then you need another dose. Then you get 4 to 6 hours of relief, and then 4 to 6 hours of relief, and then 4 to 6 hours of relief. The problem with addiction is the triage, the treatment that we give ourselves, be it alcohol, cocaine, trimethylamphetamine, pick a flavor, I don't care, is that it works. That's the cruelty of it. That's the horror of it. It's effective. 100% effective. For this long. So, our framing tonight would be, what's your problem? What is it? The problem, no matter which way I cut it, is always suffering. I've heard it described as a hole in the heart. I've heard it described as a yawning black monster. I've heard it described as a mirror dimension, and the person in the mirror is a different person in a different world. No matter which way you put it, like little mosquitoes stuck in amber, all of us become stuck like that little prehistoric mosquito in our suffering. And if you let that thick sap fall over you and you don't fight your way out, you stay there and you suffer. And now we're back to my original point of, well, find me a treatment that is 100% efficacious. 100%. Makes you feel good every time you take it. Blocks that tiredness every time you drink it. Until it wears off and you get that afternoon crash at 2 o'clock. And then you've got to go do some more. So the suffering that I observe, it doesn't matter. It doesn't. You can have a person who relates the most horrific stories of aggravated sexual assault and a person who has broken their nail. And that sounds not like, oh my God, I broke a nail. Is that suffering? If that is the worst suffering that person has ever been through, that's their 10 out of 10. And so you'll notice suffering does not care. It does not matter what caused it. It's the fact that you experience it from any source. And when we walk forward from that perspective, what's your problem? It's failing to deal with those issues or identify them that we're having a problem. And that's where you get people to go out to the bar. You get some guy who breaks up with his girlfriend. Where's the first place he goes? To the bar with his friends. To do drugs. I mean beer. And then whatever else. There's your gateway. Cannabinoids. Anything. Doesn't matter. Does not matter. And when we look at our suffering, and we go, okay, did I communicate? Pardon me. Did I communicate it? Is there help for me? And here's the cruelty. Most of the time, it's the liars that win. And we, as I just highlighted with some hands earlier, are liars. We lie to ourselves. We say, I'm not an addict because it's legal. I'm not an addict. I'm not suffering because I just broke a nail. That person has it worse than me. They're on the downtown east side. That's an addict. Me? I'm not an addict. When we minimize our own suffering, when we sublimate it, we make it something that is hard baked into us because we're not acknowledging the problem. And yet we're going to suffer anyway, so we're going to treat it. And we're back to that time frame. And you get people that go through suffering, as this evening has highlighted it, 4 decades before they finally identify what it is. What are the addictions that we solve our suffering with? Let me expand our horizons past drugs. Some of my areas that I specialize in would be triage. So I'm the facilitator who teaches people that would come out and help you as first responders or teachers, or first aiders. So the big ones for me are psychotic disorders, depression, anxiety, PTSD, suicidal ideation, all the fun stuff. Other things that are not drugs that we treat like it. Food. I am living proof that food is delicious. I'm going to tell you right now, if it wasn't for me getting a remission stage diabetic diagnosis, I'd be this big. I'm like, yeah, baby. You couldn't get me to quit camembert cheese if you tried. Okay, if I found out I was lactose intolerant, I'd be screwed. But we use food, for example, shopping, anything to get that dopamine hit. I'm not an addict because I don't do drugs. That's a nice wardrobe you got there. How many pairs of shoes you got? Full ownership, I have 12. I'm trying to cut down. Don't dish it out unless you can take it when it comes to really being direct with yourself. What's your problem? You can lie to me. I don't mind. In fact, in some circumstances, I insist on it. Somebody's folding their arms, their blood pressure's up, and they're screaming, "I'm fine!" You're fine. Did they lie to me? Yeah. Is now the time to bring that up? No. Give them a hot 5 minutes to calm down. And that's what we don't do to ourselves. We don't give ourselves an ability to calm down, to calm past the suffering, whatever's stimulating us, and identify it, typically, because it's much easier to go to the bar, hang out with your friends. That feels good. And now we're down to, well, your mates aren't coming home with you unless it's a really friendly household. So you only get X amount of hours with them before you have to be by yourself again. And really examining that process, that mechanism. What is the problem? It's not addiction. Because everything that we're doing to treat our suffering works. That's how you make an addict. That is the manufacturing process. And it is so ordinary, as I've highlighted tonight. It is simple. It is pathetically simple. And yet, we've made it into some giant boogeyman that needs to be stigmatized, not talked about, used as a weapon to get people to lose their jobs, to have them cut off from their family. And here's the cruelty of it. Those things we do to ourselves. So I'm an addict. My addictions are caffeine and food. I'm a chemist. I can make explosives and drugs. I make explosives for fun. I do not make drugs for fun. However, I can, but I don't. Have a look at the process of how you identify what makes you an addict. Some people it's sex. Some people it's new relationship. You get those serial monogamists that just have a new relationship every 3 to 6 months because they want that new shiny car smell to their relationship. Yeah? Everyone usually has one person in their friend circle who's that. But it's not me. A few giggles. I can't see you, so you're getting away with it. So it's really important to look at that and the self-stigmatization. That's the actual first ignition key for an addict. The second is finding a triage or a treatment for yourself that works, usually extremely unhealthy. And the third is just doing it until your body can't live without it, and it's a physiological need. Don't believe food is an addiction? Go to an Overeaters Anonymous. Sit there, shut up and listen. How about any of the other addictions? Sex addicts, all they are, that's just a runner, right? Who here has heard of a gym junkie? Yeah. What are those guys chasing? The endorphin rush they get after 15 minutes. Runners, weightlifters, there's no special treatment here. You're just getting a hit of opiates that your body has custom cut just for you. I'm not an addict. I'm healthy. Now, you can tell a real healthy individual. Di is a fantastic example. If I see a guy who's a condom full of walnuts covered in tattoos, I'm like, whoa, dude, you need to slow down to the gym a little. That's going to be an addict. The physiological symptoms of it come up. So if I could put this in your minds, this is the one thing I want you to take away from this. 1, I'm an addict. Hi, welcome to my meeting. 2, please stop normalizing substance use just because it's legal or illegal. And please stop stigmatizing people just because they chose something that isn't Starbucks or Timmy's or Blends or pick your brand of drug. Please don't be an addict stigmatizing another addict. Because in the very end, if no one stops and says, hey, are you okay? If that person doesn't have that perfect confluence of things that occur that saves them, I'll tell you exactly where they end up. They end up in treatment, or they end up suicidally ideating, sitting on a bridge next to me, looking at an 8-story drop, and it's not water down there, that's concrete. So let's look at that, please. If you see suffering and you're able to alleviate it for that person with their permission, you've just prevented one more addict.